Recording this presentation alone in Warsaw is not exactly how I imagine it. I would be absolutely delighted to be a part of a real-time conference. But well, as they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. So here we are. Please make yourself comfortable and let's begin a journey to the story of Second Life of Chaim. Wait a minute, you may ask yourself, who is Chaim? Wasn't it supposed to be a type design presentation? Well, yes, but before I tell you about the font Chaim, I wanted you to know that it's also a common Jewish name that means life. Later, you will see that this fact is important. Objects of design sometimes live different lives than intended by their creators. Therefore, I wanted to tell you a story of a typeface as it was a person. A lot of documents got lost during the Second World War. So, some parts of the history of Chaim are rather assumptions than certainties. There is a discussion among the researchers who exactly was responsible for bringing Chaim to the world. This is what I found thanks to Marian Misiak research referenced in a book Pan-Europa Kometa Hel. According to the documents from the Patent Office in Warsaw, Chaim was born on March 18, 1929. It was registered by Ichkowski and Company Type Foundry. And his father was Jan Levit, young self-taught designer who was born in Częstochowa in 1907 and died in London in 1991. During the period of 1925 and 1926, he traveled across Europe, and in 1928 he spent some time in Palestine. Most probably, he created Chaim after coming back to Poland in 1928. I share the opinion of a researcher, Philip Messner, who thinks that Chaim initially was meant for Yiddish, not Hebrew. Back then, Yiddish was a common spoken and written language of Ashkenazi Jewish diaspora. It was used by them in everyday communication, also in Poland. At the same time, Biblical Hebrew was a sacred language, used only in holy books and religious services. In the late 19th and early 20th century, secular Jew Eliezer ben Yehuda was working on revival of a Hebrew language that could be used in a modern era by modern Jews in their own country. All of those share the same Hebrew script. Just like kids, typefaces live their own lives. While being widely used, Chaim Bold acquired a set of digits. As Simon Price writes in a design consideration affecting the simultaneous use of Latin and Hebrew typography, this event happened without Levitt knowing of it. The numbers were probably from a different typeface. Which exactly we don't know. Anyhow, in this unintended form, it is used until now. The numbers in bold weight are rounded and designed in a different style than the letters. It is a mismatch, but on the other hand, it is a part of Chaim's history. After the great success of a bold weight, there was a need for something more narrow, for reducing the print costs. As an answer for this need, Chaim Condensed was published in 1933. The numbers in that one fit better to the style of the letters. I often think about the responsibility that comes with the privilege of being a designer. I also know that it's impossible to control everything. At some point, especially while designing a typeface, it is important to finish and let our projects to live their own life. Chaim is a very good example. Jan Levitt was trying to reflect the period in time rather than following certain aesthetics, for example, of Latin script. With his project, he was answering a need for a modern typeface for Yiddish. And he couldn't predict that his avant-garde project will be one of the most popular typefaces in Israel, which did not exist back then. In 1930s, after being widely used in Europe, Chaim became hugely successful in Palestine, later on the State of Israel, and it held this position until new digital typefaces were introduced. Nowadays, we can still see Chaim on the newspaper headlines, especially when something very important is happening. Other than that, it appears on old buildings, parking lots, backyard signs in the neighborhoods which represent cultural heritage. But the users do not treat it with the respect, though. So, look at this paradox. One of the few things that are keeping Chaim alive is a common death notice. And it looks almost as a sign of the death of the font itself. But don't worry, Chaim got its second life, as you will find out later. But let's leave him for now and look at Aviva, the font that I designed while working on my graduation project. I wanted to design a font for a Latin script that wouldn't be based on Latin design conventions. For an outsider, it might seem that the amount of existing fonts is overwhelming. Indeed, it is true, but only for the Latin script. When it comes to Hebrew, Arabic, or Cyrillic, not even mentioning the other scripts, the range of available fonts is nothing close to Latin. The situation is even worse when it comes to multi-script typeface families. There is a real need for typographers to develop those. One of the goals of my project was to answer that need. So why did I design another font for Latin? I did it because my native language, Polish, is based on Latin script. And as a native user, I wanted to reverse the logic and reimagine the common practice of designing other scripts to look similar to Latin. So I asked myself, what if Latin-based languages were in the minority? Could I design for Latin script, but having, for example, Hebrew script conventions as a starting point? And here is how I answer those questions. First, is good to know the differences and similarities between those two. So Hebrew direction is from right to left, and Latin is the opposite. Latin has a lot of curves, sometimes rounded edges. Hebrew has only one letter case, when Latin has two. In case of Chaim, glyphs are rather constructed than reflecting calligraphic or cursive way of writing Hebrew. While designing Aviva, I decided to follow Hebrew and Chaim characteristic and made it on purpose, only uppercase and without any curves. Moreover, in some cases, I even copied glyphs from Hebrew, which I know is not a traditional approach. My intention was to shed light on the story of Chaim, my starting point for Latin, and encouraging new generation of designers to use it again and again in their projects in different ways. So I digitalized my own version of Chaim and added a new set of digits to the bold weight, as well as diacritics to make it easier to set text in Polish. I thought Aviva will be a perfect life companion for Chaim. I merged them together in one multi-script type family. Just like the original, Aviva also has only two weights, bold and condensed. On the other hand, Aviva is edgy, modern, and by design it makes conventional Latin letters look bold and fresh. Just like her name, which means spring. In her company, Chaim seems lighter and more relevant. During the process, I also used my anthropological experience. My first degree is from cultural anthropology. I spent almost half year in Haifa, Israel, doing research, interviews, but maybe most importantly, participant observation. And all of this helped me to understand better where, when, and by whom Chaim is used nowadays. Thanks to this, I also learned a lot about Hebrew, even though I don't speak the language.
ألف بيت جمل دلت هي فاف زين حي تيت يود كف لمد ميم نون سمخ عين بيت سدي كوف راشين تاف ألف تاف تاف ألف تاف.
I know that there is still a lot ahead of me. Since the graduation in 2019, I've been continuously improving Chaim and Aviva. And I'm happy that the second life of Chaim has already started, and I hope that more is waiting for him and Aviva in the nearest future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Oh, Zofia, yes, she's there.
Hi, I'm here. Yes, hello.
Any questions to Zofia? Well, I have a question. Chaim in Israel has a connotation of being old, of connotating struggle, maybe the Zionist movement, this period of the 30s, which was a historically very important period. Do you think that Aviva will also carry this connotation?
No, actually, I think because of Aviva, Chaim, and because right now Chaim and Aviva, they are like merged together in one multi-script font. So because of Aviva, I think Chaim also can gain some freshness, and I don't think that Aviva still have those connotations, especially for people who don't know the story and they just use it a font just for graphic design purposes. And I'm not sure if I can add a link to a chat here, because I could, thanks to Polish Institute of Adam Mickiewicz, I made this font available for free for commercial and non-commercial purposes, and it's like this for over a month. So it's very new thing. So it's so maybe I can leave the link somewhere for the ones who would like to download it.
And do you think we can do this process of going from a non-Latin font to a Latin font for other Hebrew fonts, or is it specific to Chaim, which is quite singular?
No, I think we can do it, but I'm not sure if in other cases it would be reasonable, because this was kind of an experiment, like an art intervention almost, and I think actually I would. Right now, after doing this project, I would stand on this, like on this opinion that it's better to follow the characteristic of each script when we are designing it. So actually, if I would do a new multi-script typeface, I would do Latin with curve, like with curves. not so so square as it is now. I mean, it's good for display, but it's also very it's very characteristic. So I think it's interesting starting point, and maybe if I would next time I would recommend to a person who would like to follow similar path to not be so strict with with matching both characteristics, like aesthetically, of both scripts. So it's possible, but it's I would do it differently now, maybe.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions? Thank you very much.
I saw a comment somewhere where I can see it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.